I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Well, the latest threat to the Great Lakes may surprise you. Millions of tiny plastic fragments. The plastic and the impact it's having on the lake's aquatic species is being studied by a UWS chemistry professor.
The Twin Ports Epilepsy Stroll is less than 1 week away, but there's still time to get involved and learn how the Epilepsy Foundation is helping those affected by the condition.
And we'll have the week's business news and a news file story on how the drought of 1988 was affecting Northland lakes.
So don't go away. Almanac North is next. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. This week's program was recorded on Wednesday afternoon due to the PBS Pledge Drive, which begins this weekend. And we'll have more on that a little bit later, but now here's Denny with our first topic.
All right, Julie, thank you very much and welcome everyone. A UWS research scientist and colleagues from 2 Eastern universities made a surprising discovery on a science voyage on the Great Lakes last summer. Now they found a new type of pollution, millions of tiny plastic fragments floating in the lakes. The impact of these tiny plastic fragments is still being studied, but common household products may be contributing to the pollution. Joining us now to talk about her research is Dr. Lorena Rios Mendoza, Assistant Professor of Chemistry at UW Superior. Thank you so very much for being here. Now, you did study this issue in the oceans. Were you surprised, Doctor, to find the problem in the lakes?
Not really. I was expecting that, the plastic is everywhere, and then I was thinking we can find plastic in the Lake Superior, in the Great Lakes in general.
Yeah. Now these are tiny, tiny fabrics of plastic. Where are they coming from?
Could be from the cloths, could be from the fishing line. We don't know. It's the fragmentation from the big fragment of plastic.
Doctor, tell us how the study was conducted and what specifically you went out looking for.
My field is in chemistry, and then I'm looking for the persistent organic pollutants like polyaromatics from the petroleum, gasolines, PCBs from the industry, electrical industry, and organochlorine pesticides like DDTs. This is that I want to see it if the plastic is absorbing this kind of pollutants. I found it in the ocean that the plastic are working like a sponge, trapping all these kind of compounds, and then it's transferred, and the small sizes, the plastic particles is more dangerous because the surface area is bigger and can concentrate more of these contaminants and easily is confused by the natural food. This means it's mimic food.
I see. So the fish are eating these plastic particles.
Fish are eating. And all the sea organisms are now the aquatic organisms.
Doctor, are you finding in the Great Lakes that the contaminants are clinging to the plastic like you found when you were looking in the ocean? Is that a problem? Is it being kind of picked up and moved to other parts of the lake because it's clinging to the floating plastic?
The amount and the plastic by weight is more in the ocean because it's logical, because it's huge area. But in the Lake Erie, for example, the quantity is a lot. It's not like a weight, is for quantity. We find like between 500 to 6,000 particles by square kilometer.
How does that compare with Lake Superior, Doctor?
Lake Superior is less concentration in this kind of plastic. It's bigger, the lake, and deeper, but I think it's because we don't have a lot of source. This means people around the lakes.
I was surprised to hear, Doctor, that as you look at the these little pieces of plastic carefully, that so many of them are perfectly round, and that they are actually perhaps the little micro abrasives that are found in facial lotion or scrubs, hand scrubs, things like that. Have companies started to look at this as a potential issue, that maybe they should stop making products with that kind of an abrasive in it?
Yes, the Dr. Marcus Edison from the 5 Years Institute, they talked with one of the company, and they say they will start to study to change this kind of the plastic pellet in 2017.
Sure. Doctor, do you want the U.S. Congress to start looking at this?
Oh yeah, totally. Yes.
What are you doing? What are you starting to notify lawmakers, federal lawmakers?
No, that I'm doing is collect the fact, the data with my research, and then show them, look at this. This is the reality. We have this problem.
Is that what you eventually would plan to do? Perhaps is get Congress interested in the subject.
So you started out by collecting water samples, and also fish samples, correct?
Yes.
Now, are you finding evidence as you're dissecting the fish that they are in fact eating these little pieces of plastic, and that the plastic is staying in their bodies or in their flesh and could potentially cause problems?
Yes, we analyzed already 110 stomach fish from Lake Superior, and just we find in 20 very small fiber of plastic, but we find, and this is the first set. And now we are running with more samples from Lake Erie.
I see.
And then I think my hypothesis is we can find more plastic in the fish from the Lake Erie, because we find a lot of very small pieces of plastic.
Will your research also be turned over to the medical community to see if there's a link with cancer here?
I really don't know, but I know the compounds that absorb this plastic are endocrine disruptors. It's another kind of problem. And we don't know in reality what happened when the fish eat this plastic contaminated, and how long take to transfer the pollutant to the organisms, and if the problem stop in the fish, or when we eat the fish, go with us. We don't know.
Okay, so
we need to study this.
At this point, Doctor, we haven't found any of these plastics in humans, in autopsies on people who have died?
No, I don't think so. But I don't know, if you drink the water from the lake and it's microscopic, maybe we are drinking plastic. Yep.
Would you make any recommendations at this point about whether people should be wary of eating the fish in the Great Lakes because of this? Is it to that point yet?
I think the result that we have already is a little weaker. We need to study more. And then I need to repeat this kind of studies at least for 3 or 5 years.
Okay.
And then we can say, this is the problem. But for now, in the meantime, that we can say it is we need to educate the community, the people, and we need to stop the source. And what is the source? We are the source. Yes, and then we need to use the 3 R's that always teach you in the school: reuse, recycle, and reduce. But I would like to add one more, that is refuse. Don't use plastic. If you don't need it, don't use it. Just like that.
So in addition to the little micro beads or micro abrasives that you're finding, some of these particles also came from larger pieces of plastic, garbage, trash that kind of swirled around in the waves and broke up into little pieces too?
Yeah, because the plastic from the petroleum is not biodegradable. And that is just just suffer the photodegradation. What does mean this? When the sun heated the plastic, and then this is harder and is easily break it in very small pieces, but it's plastic yet.
So Lake Erie is the most polluted of the Great Lakes that you found in your research?
In the quantity on plastic, yes.
Where is Lake Superior in that? Do you see that we're at a pretty good position right now as far as the cleanliness of the lake and the amount of contaminants, or should we be concerned about this as well?
I think we need to study more the Great Lakes, the Superior Lake. Why? Because the sample that we take the last year was just like 5 samples, and then it's not enough number to say it, no plastic.
Sure. What's next in your research?
This August 18, I will go to the Lake Michigan,
Oh.
Huron, and St. Clair River, and I hope so we can take samples from Lake Erie again.
Doctor, is there anything that you can learn about how this problem has been addressed in the ocean and apply it here in terms of getting rid of the plastic? Is there any sort of a practical way to filter it out or to take it out of the lake once it's actually in there?
Oh, this is really nice question. I really don't know if we can clean it. I know the people they start to develop new methodology to make the identification in the ocean. What is the big center of accumulation of plastic and try to take it. But at this point, I really don't know. Everything is in a study, it's in research now. But the only thing that I say is try to stop. Don't use too much plastic. And if you use, just try to keep it and reuse or something.
Doctor, are you starting to interest others in your field to be wary of these plastic particles? Other researchers?
Oh, yes. We have the people that is studying in Japan, in Tokyo.
Oh, so you're not alone at this.
Nope. No, in the ocean. They are studying in the ocean. I am alone here in the lakes.
Okay, you're the lone.
Yes, but I'm sure the people will be start to study.
Except I understand that you're also engaging some of your students over at UWS in the research too. Talk about how you're bringing them into this project and giving them some, real world hands-on research opportunity.
Yeah, normally that I'm doing in the first day on the class when I'm saying what I'm doing, I talk about the plastic research and I show them some results, and some of them, they really want to learn more. And they come in with me and stay with me and study, and I can teach how do the analysis, how use different analytical instruments. And in this way, they are involved in the research.
Yeah.
And I have already 5 students working with me. In this August, one student will go with me to take samples.
Well, maybe a year from now we could have you back and talk about what you have been collecting and learning.
Yeah.
Doctor, is there ongoing funding for this, or is that something that you struggle with halfway through a process?
Yes, no, we don't have money now, but I hope so. With all these results, we can get money from the Great Lakes and other organizations, from the government and non-government.
Any last message to people? Again, pushing the reduce, reuse, recycle?
Yes, exactly. Just please try to. If you don't need to use plastic, don't use it. Just refuse. Remember, when you go to buy your sandwich, they say, plastic bag. No, I don't want it. Thank you.
Yeah, all right.
That's it.
Fine. Doctor, thank you very much. Interesting
Thank
subject.
you.
We thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
The less water a lake contains, the less healthy it is. Already, the drought has brought northern Minnesota lakes to an abnormally low level, and a plan to draw off several more inches to feed into the Mississippi has caused concern among biologists.
This is a very major thing to start drawing down lakes. You're really tampering with Mother Nature. Even if they are artificially kept up by reservoirs, you're still changing something that's been in existence for a long time.
Removing water from a lake causes 2 problems. One problem is that sand, usually covered with a few inches of water, is churned up by tiny waves. The sand and nutrients become suspended in the water, making it cloudy and promoting the growth of algae. The second problem is that less water means less oxygen for fish. That can lead to huge fish kills in the winter.
It could be a real disastrous fish kills. Once the fish start dying under the ice, then they're going to decay and respire, and it really could be a mess.
It's impossible to predict exactly how the fish in each lake would react to a drop in the water level. But more than likely, a decision to provide water to the Twin Cities this year would continue to affect the plant and animal life of northern Minnesota lakes for many years to come. At the Mississippi headwaters, Carla Powers, KDLH News.
More than 2 million people in the United States have epilepsy, a condition that can cause seizures. Some 150,000 new cases are reported in the United States every year. The mission of the Epilepsy Foundation is to stop seizures, help those affected, and find a cure. Next week in Duluth, you can help the cause by participating in the Epilepsy Stroll. Joining us now with more is Kaya Altier, who suffers from epilepsy and facilitates a support group. And Brett Garnetz has epilepsy, which is under control thanks to a nerve stimulating device. And thanks to both of you ladies for coming in here today. Kaya, most people have heard about epilepsy, but they may not know much about it. So what are kind of the key talking points, you know, when you're explaining to people what epilepsy is?
Epilepsy is a neurological condition, okay? The thing is, a seizure is a seizure. But it does not necessarily mean that you have epilepsy. For example, one may have a seizure due to the heat, due to maybe they have diabetes, maybe a heart condition, okay? But that is a seizure. But if you have 2 or more reoccurring seizures, then it's a seizure disorder epilepsy.
I see.
Okay.
Brett, how common is it?
How common? In Minnesota, there are 60,000 individuals with epilepsy. And so it depends also on the age and the range, but what we are looking at mostly is within Minnesota.
I have a granddaughter with epilepsy, and she hasn't had a seizure now in several years. She's going into junior high school. People my age used to say you can outgrow epilepsy. That's not a term I know that is widely used today, but can epilepsy take a hiatus?
For me, it has. I've been 3.5 years seizure-free, but we don't like to say we've outgrown it. Epilepsy will always be a part of you, but it's not who you are. So we don't like to say you outgrow it completely.
Could you share your personal stories and how you were diagnosed with epilepsy and what that meant for you because of it?
I've had seizures all my life, okay? I was adopted. I came from South Korea, so I really don't have an idea about if I had a brain injury or anything like that. And so I started having seizures when I was young, but I wasn't diagnosed until I was 8. Now, I was very fortunate because with medication, my seizures were controlled, okay? However, then I went to college. And I started having the pressures of school and all of that. And I started to have grand mal seizures, which are called generally tonic-clonic. Okay, and so my seizures became more frequent, and I had medications, and I changed medications. Okay, and so there was a situation in '96 where my seizures had become so frequent that my doctor was wondering, am I a candidate for surgery? Okay, which terrified me, terrified me greatly. And so I went down to MNSEP, an epilepsy clinic down in the Twin Cities. And I went into the hospital and they did an EEG with me. I had sticky tabs on my head for about 2 weeks to evaluate. And they realized that I didn't have, I wasn't a candidate for surgery. What I was toxic on my anti-seizure medications. And so that's what was causing that. Yes, exactly. So I got off of those medications. But my opportunity at that time was I was introduced to the Epilepsy Foundation. I had no idea that there was a resource organization that could provide support, because I had been living with this by myself alone, and I had no idea what I was going to do because I didn't have seizures before. They were controlled. And now I'm having seizures. I have to change medications. What's happening?
What do support groups do for one another?
Well, for me, I came in and didn't know anyone who had a epilepsy, and all of a sudden there's a face to a number. And I met Kaya, and I met another individual who has a vagus nerve stimulator like I did.
Yes.
And able to talk about, how did you make it through school? How were you able to go without driving? How do you make it work with your family or your significant other? Families and friends are fabulous, but those who actually go through it is a whole other side. And it's important
Can you
to have
talk
them.
about that vagus nerve stimulation?
Yes, I have a vagus nerve stimulator, which is within this part of my chest.
It's implanted,
It's implanted.
surgically?
And there's 3 leads that wrap around my vagus nerve, my left vagus nerve, and I say it's like a pacemaker for the brain. Mine goes off every 2 minutes for 20 seconds, and what it's pretty much doing is making the communication continually. Let's keep the communication all the time going. And if something does happen, I have a magnet that I'm able to put over my VNS, as we call it, and it can go for a full minute strength, and it can stop a seizure or decrease it.
Can you tell then? You can tell then when the VNS is activated?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay.
And how has that impacted just your general life, making that decision to have that implanted?
It was wonderful. With all my meds, I used to be like a walking zombie. And luckily, I made it through my bachelor's at UWL. And I have my memory's much better now. I'm able to drive. I went without driving for a long time. And I am going back to school, so it's been a wonderful thing.
And Kaya, are you a candidate for something like that?
No, I'm not, because of the way my seizures are. It's not. They've not responded to medications. Okay, they're greatly decreased by medications, but no, not the VNS. So, but the talk is about perhaps I would be a candidate for brain surgery, and I was just at MINSEP on Monday. And we were talking about me going in to Abbott Northwestern, and it would be an EEG for about 10 days where they will monitor my brain and seizure activity. And then a team of epileptologists would take a look at what my brain scans are like and see where is my seizures, are they coming from, and if it would be a possible area that would be safe that they could possibly take out, which is terrifying.
Brett, you're driving again, it sounds like.
Yes.
At what point are driving privileges taken, and then what has to happen for them to be returned?
Well, and it varies on each state.
It does.
And it used to be in Minnesota 6 months, and now it is 3 months, correct? Which has been wonderful. But as soon as you have a seizure, you need to give up your license, because we've seen, both of us have seen people actually drive through buildings or have something. We don't want that to happen.
Can you drive while you're on the seizure medication?
Yes, once you are under control.
Under control.
What about any advice for just people who might be around someone who has an epileptic seizure? Because it can be very disconcerting to have someone having a seizure in front of you. What should or they should not do?
Well, the number one thing is to try and stay calm. Okay, this is a person that is not able to control the seizure that is happening. Okay, and so you would want to stay calm, try and get them comfortable and safe to a safe spot, whether sitting down or if they're having a grand mal seizure, help them to lay down on the floor and on their side.
Should help be summoned, an ambulance perhaps?
So, well, that's just it. And Brett and I were talking about this before. For the person, take a look on them. Do they have a seizure bracelet, epilepsy, to let them know that, yes, this is due to epilepsy. Do they need an ambulance? Not necessarily, okay? And that's really important to know, because I know both of us, we've gone through being shipped to ERs, having to pay the ambulance fee, have to pay for an ER visit, which was totally unnecessary because we have epilepsy, we have reoccurring seizures, and there you go.
Good information to know.
Let's talk about the Stroll, because you're trying to raise money for a good cause.
Absolutely. The Stroll is happening next Thursday, and registration is at 5. And the Stroll starts at 6:30 out at Park Point. Now, what we have is individuals have formed teams, okay? And they go out and get folks to donate for us. And right now we have 27 teams. Brett and I are co-captains of Team Connections. Connections is the name of our support group that we meet once a month. And so we have our members that have been going out and asking for donations. And what's great about it is that, you know, even if you're not on a team, come on out, join us. We're at the Beach House We're going to be there from 5 o'clock till when it ends, could be 7, 8 o'clock.
The
you
Park
know?
Point Beach House.
The Park Point Beach House.
And if you don't know somebody on a team, all of the teams are listed on the website, and people
Exactly.
can make their donations. Just pick one. It all goes to the
Exactly.
same place.
You've
right?
enlightened a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And all the money stays in the community. It does not go national.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing some
Well,
information
thank you.
about
Thank
a
you.
really important subject.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Time now for a look at the week's economic news from the folks at Business North. The assets of Two Harbors-based Granite Gear have been acquired by Brez, an Illinois company that makes and sells similar products. Design and manufacturing will remain in Two Harbors, and the co-founders of the company will stay on as managers. The new owners say Brez will raise the Granite Gear brand to new levels in the outdoor and travel goods industries. Granite Gear was launched back in 1986, and its products are now available in more than 500 retail locations in 15 countries.
One of Duluth's oldest entertainment companies celebrated an anniversary this week. Lundin Productions, known as ShowPro, marked 40 years during an event at Clyde Ironworks. Launched as a booking agency by Tracy Lundin, ShowPro started out promoting events including outdoor concerts with big-name artists. ShowPro now promotes expos and productions like the Duluth Bridal Show and Lake Superior Family Fun Fest. To mark the anniversary, Lundin unveiled the Bluebird Foundation, an initiative to promote youth in the arts.
Despite financial difficulties faced by the newspaper industry, there's a limit to how much you can cut staff. 3 former Ashland Daily Press editors said that recently. Claire Duquette, Richard Pufall, and Candy Ferguson said the publication had just one full-time reporter this spring. Yet American Consolidated Media, the owner, felt the level was adequate. Pufall retired at the end of May, citing excessive workload. Ferguson and another editor quit without notice in July for the same reason. Owners and their representatives did not respond to requests for comment. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
And if you have a comment about our show, pick up your telephone, dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org. And for program updates, visit the WDSE website, where you'll also find the latest news and information about the station. And Denny, speaking of that, Saturday marks the beginning of a week-long membership drive held here on public television, and because of that, Almanac North will have the next week off.
This is important because the good folks out there have a chance to keep this program and many others here on PBS going.
That's right. So even though we won't be here, keep watching and pledge. And don't worry, Denny and I will be back for another show on Friday, August 9th. For the entire crew here at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. We'll see you in 2 weeks.